That's Michael Brown's stepfather with the protesters on the streets of Ferguson after the grand jury decision Monday night. Tonight, his wife, Michael Brown's mother, responding to whether he had a hand in sparking the violence that followed. Listen.
I don't agree with that. It was his raw emotion. He was upset. And to speak on and act on is two different things. And freedom of speech, you can say whatever you like. But remember what those people were saying August 9th. And it wasn't coming from the family.
Joining me now, Bishop Rafael Green is the founder and senior pastor of the Metropolitan Christian Worship Center. And Joe Hicks is the vice president of community advocates and member of Project 21. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Bishop, I want to start with you because prior to the decision on Monday night, Michael Brown's father had put out a message saying he didn't want his son to be remembered by violence, by protests, that there were other ways to accomplish things and work needed to be done, but not in this way. Do you fault his stepfather then for standing there when people were so upset? There are throngs of them, and he's saying burn the blank down multiple times.
No, we don't fault him for that. This is just an outburst of anger. Many people have them. I'm sure that even Officer Darren Wilson may have had an outburst of anger. It was off camera. It's very important to understand, though, that though these were the requests, this man was really, really overcome with emotion. And you take it for what it's worth. People will respond according to what they really believe they should do, regardless to what the stepfather did.
Well, we know what happened in the hours after that, which was heartbreaking for everyone there in Ferguson, especially those business owners, you know, who, whether they were involved in any of what happened to Michael Brown, the tragedy that involved him, they lost their businesses. And we saw them the next day, many of them saying, how am I now going to provide for my kids or for my family or be a part of this community? So, Joe, I ask you, we know that you can't just say whatever you want. I mean, you know, there's legal authority on that. You can't yell inside of a crowded theater, fire. Was this that kind of equivalent, or is that overstating it?
Well, obviously, this stepfather is not going to be prosecuted for his comments. And first of all, I want to say that the mom and the dad, the actual dad in this case, get a big pass from me. You know, losing a child in that way is devastating. Sure. So they get a pass. I have had no criticism of anything they've said, even when I've disagreed. The stepdad, however, in front of throngs of people that had been at a razor's edge for several days waiting for the decision, with threats of violence already in the air in Ferguson and other parts of the nation. And he then releases this outburst from the podium in front of this crowd, I think it's like pouring gasoline on a fire ready to ignite. So I think while he should be in a certain way held accountable for that, I don't think you're going to see any kind of prosecution of what is that kind of inflammatory statements. We just have to judge it for what it is, and perhaps condemn his inability to understand what the real father has been saying, arguing for peace and calm on the street. Very different message coming from these two different men.
Bishop, do you think that it is possible, with all of the emotion that's involved here, to have a constructive conversation about the facts, about the evidence, about what's been laid out, even though there may be some disputed interpretation of it? Do you think we can have that conversation civilly?
To be sure, I think that also it's important to begin in some way, not necessarily condoning and approving every action, every word, but somehow establishing that you do understand where people are coming from. Most conversations break down the moment an individual feels that you do not understand. You don't, as they say in the street, you don't feel where they're really coming from. We can progress and move forward once that is established, and we'll be able to probably come to some agreement. This whole issue of interpretation is really the culprit in my estimation, because it really has to do with utilizing standards and critical assumptions that are already presuppositions in the minds and hearts of many, many people. And so it's important, it's very, very important to be able to establish not only what you mean or what I mean, but what the person who is actually listening to us means as well. We do this all the time when we study Scripture. You must begin in the context, historically, emotionally, geographically, every single thing. You don't just pull it out and set it up against your own standard for trying to define what the Bible is saying or meaning.
And Joe, do you think we can do that here if we're just looking at the law and the facts? Do you think that there can be that interpretation that the two sides can see any common ground here?
Well, here, with all due respect to what we just heard here, my problem, what we see happening, is people that are just flat out rejecting facts and evidence, testimony, eyewitness testimony from black witnesses who came and corroborated the police officer's version of events. Yet people are saying we won't believe it, we refuse to accept it, and are continuing to argue for pushing forward, saying, in essence, that the nation, people who aren't black in this case, as we just heard, don't understand them, don't understand where they're coming from.
All right.
I'm not always sure we need to understand that and the devastation been in the wake of that. We have to somehow find a way to engage, as the bishop just said, each other, but there has to be some common basis for us having that discussion.
Right.
For people to reject in a nearly pathological way facts and evidence is not a basis to have that kind of constructive discussion.
We got to leave it there. Joe Hicks, Bishop Green, thank you both, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.